Every known animal that uses disguise relies on one trick. The mimic octopus has at least 15, and it selects the right one based on which predator is closing in. Lionfish, flatfish, banded sea snake. Each transformation is complete in under 2 seconds, powered by skin that shifts color in less than 200 milliseconds, and a nervous system where 2/3 of its neurons live outside the brain. This creature was not even identified until 1998, and what one scientist captured on camera off the coast of Indonesia would force us to rethink what intelligence really looks like. Salt hangs in the air above Lembah Strait, mixing with the faint scent of engine oil as the dive boat idles over a stretch of black volcanic sand. The logbook notes the water at 27 degrees Celsius, visibility hovering around 10 meters, but the world below is a muted haze, sepia-toned, almost dreamlike. Mark Norman checks the seals on his underwater housing, a Sony Dati Walkman loaded and ready, the analog tape humming quietly as he slips beneath the surface. At a depth of just 4 to 6 meters, the bottom appears barren at first glance, broken only by scattered shells and the slow ripple of current stirring up fine silt. A flicker in the sand catches Norman's eye, a dark striped shape barely larger than a dinner plate, sliding along the substrate. He steadies the camera, focusing on the brown and white bands that run the length of the animal's arms. In the space of a heartbeat, the octopus halts, compresses its body flat, and stretches its arms wide. The transformation is so sudden it feels unreal. Stripes sharpen, pigment surges beneath the skin, and the animal glides forward in a perfect imitation of a flatfish, hugging the sand so closely that only the faintest outline betrays it. Norman's recorder picks up the muffled click-click of the octopus's siphon, the gentle hiss of displaced water. Then, with a quick undulation, the creature rises, arms streaming behind in a sinuous curve, and the stripes blur into the unmistakable pattern of a banded sea snake. Norman would write later in his log that the octopus had just changed into a sea snake, struggling to capture the shock of that first encounter. For decades, scientists had missed this spectacle, passing over these silty bottoms, without suspecting that one of the ocean's most inventive octopus shapeshifters was hiding in plain sight. Word of Norman's encounter moved quickly through the marine biology community, but the real turning point came when the original video footage and field notes were compiled for scientific review. The octopus's strange behaviors, so precisely documented on DAT, tape, and in handwritten logs, became the foundation for a formal species description. Norman, together with Fred Hochberg, began the painstaking process of cataloging the animal's unique features: long arms, a high dorsal ridge, and a suite of behaviors never seen in any other octopus. By 1998, the evidence was strong enough to warrant a new genus. The scientific name, Thumoctopus mimicus, appeared in print that year, signaling to the world that this was not just a local curiosity, but a distinct branch of the octopus family tree. The first peer-reviewed paper, published in Molluscan Research, described not only the animal's anatomy, but also its astonishing ability to impersonate multiple species. The submission drew immediate attention from cephalopod specialists and evolutionary biologists who were quick to recognize the implications. Here was an animal that could switch between disguises in real time, using both color and posture to fool a wide range of predators. Within months, the footage and the new species announcement were circulating at international conferences, sparking debates about the boundaries of mimicry and the mechanisms behind such rapid transformations. Norman's role as principal author and discoverer became firmly established. The publication set off a wave of follow-up studies and field expeditions, each one probing deeper into the biological machinery that made this animal possible. The scientific conversation had shifted, from marveling at a strange performance on the seafloor to asking how and why such a performance could exist at all. A single pulse from the octopus's brain can set off a wave of color that sweeps across its skin in less than 200 milliseconds. This transformation begins deep within the skin itself, where thousands of tiny pigment sacs called chromatophores lie packed just below the surface. Each chromatophore is surrounded by a ring of radial muscles, ready to contract or relax at a moment's notice. When the animal's nervous system fires a command, these muscles pull the chromatophore open, stretching it into a broad disc that reveals the pigment inside. Let go, and the sac tightens back into a nearly invisible dot, erasing the color as quickly as it appeared. The real engine behind this process is the optic lobe, a part of the octopus's brain dedicated almost entirely to vision and pattern recognition. As soon as a predator or a change in the environment is detected, the optic lobe analyzes the incoming visual information and sends a rapid-fire signal down a chain of motor neurons. This neural cascade activates hundreds of chromatophores at once, allowing the animal to switch from pale sand to bold stripes in the blink of an eye. Laboratory measurements show that the time from stimulus to full color change can be as little as 200 milliseconds, faster than a human can blink. Roger Hanlon's research team has shown that this control is not just reflexive. The octopus can selectively expand certain chromatophores while leaving others untouched, creating crisp, high-contrast patterns or subtle gradients as needed. This layered system goes beyond simple background matching. Chromatophores provide the base colors, yellows, reds, browns, while deeper layers of iridophores and leucophores reflect and scatter light, adding iridescence or white highlights. The result is a living palette that can be reconfigured almost instantly, supporting not only camouflage, but the dramatic impersonations that define the mimic octopus. By wiring pigment cells directly to the nervous system, the octopus achieves a level of control over its appearance unmatched in the animal kingdom. The readiness of this system means the animal is always prepared to deploy a new disguise, setting the stage for the complex mimicry behaviors that follow. Smooth skin is only half the story. The mimic octopus wields a second, more tactile trick, papillae, tiny muscular projections that erupt from its skin in less than 120 milliseconds. These hydrostatic structures are built from bundles of muscle fibers, arranged so that each papilla can stiffen, elongate, or flatten with a single burst of neural input. When a threat appears, the papillae leap into action, sculpting the animal's silhouette into something entirely new. A flat, unbroken surface can bristle into a field of spines, or morph into rippling bumps that break up the octopus's outline against the sand. The architecture behind this transformation is both simple and ingenious. Each papilla is controlled by direct motor innervation, bypassing the central brain for speed. The command starts in the pedal ganglia and travels along fine nerve fibers that reach every patch of skin. Electromyography experiments, including those led by Roger Hanlon, have measured the latency between a visual cue and papillae erection at just over 1/10 of a second, fast enough to outpace most fish strikes. This speed allows the octopus to raise or lower texture almost as quickly as it changes color, creating a seamless illusion whether it is impersonating the jagged fins of a lionfish or the smooth glide of a flatfish. Papillae do not just add detail, they reshape the octopus's entire three-dimensional profile. When the animal spreads its arms and lifts papillae in staggered rows, the effect is dramatic. A single creature can mimic the venomous spines of a lionfish or the rough, uneven surface of a sea anemone. The ability to modulate both color and texture in tandem means the octopus can match not only the appearance, but also the tactile impression of its models. This dual system, chromatophores for color, papillae for form, makes each impersonation convincing from every angle, even at close range. The combination of high-speed color change and instant texture control forms the core of the mimic octopus's disguise toolkit. By shifting both the surface and the shape of its body in a fraction of a second, the animal can move fluidly between identities, ready to deploy the next model as the situation demands. A ripple in the sand, the shadow of a predator, and the mimic octopus springs into action. When a broad-shouldered grouper drifts overhead, the octopus spreads its arms wide, lifts its body, and bristles its papillae into a jagged crown. The transformation is uncanny. Arms splayed, skin striped with bold orange and black, it becomes the living image of a lionfish. The illusion works on more than just looks. Lionfish are armed with venomous spines, and most fish, grouper included, have learned to keep their distance. Field notes from Lembe Strait record that octopuses holding this pose are rarely approached, even when predators circle close enough to taste the current. When the threat comes from below, for example a flatfish hunting catfish, the octopus shifts tactics. It flattens itself against the sand, arms fused to its sides, chromatophores pulsing out a muted sandy brown. The animal glides forward, undulating in a way that mimics the stiff, side-to-side motion of a banded sole. Flatfish are tough, bony, and notoriously hard to swallow. Video analysis from 2001 documented more than a dozen such encounters, with the octopus holding the flatfish disguise for up to 3 minutes, outlasting the patience of most would-be hunters. But nothing in the mimic's arsenal is as dramatic as the sea snake impersonation. Triggered by the approach of damselfish or triggerfish, species known to mob small octopuses, the animal tucks 6 arms deep into the sand, leaving only 2 exposed. These remaining arms stretch out, banded in high contrast black and white, and wave in a slow serpentine pattern. The resemblance to the highly venomous banded sea snake is so precise that even seasoned predators back away. In one recorded sequence, the octopus maintained the snake pose for just under a minute, enough to scatter a cluster of damselfish and slip away unnoticed. Each disguise is a calculated gamble, chosen in less than a second and tailored to the threat at hand. Observational data show that model selection is tightly linked to the type of predator. Lionfish for big, gape-limited hunters, flatfish for benthic ambush specialists, sea snake for small, aggressive fish. The mimic octopus doesn't just vanish. It rewrites the rules of engagement, turning the tables on its enemies by becoming something they fear more than an octopus. Long-term field surveys in the Lembe Strait have captured a staggering range of disguises. Over a decade of observation, scientists have documented the mimic octopus impersonating at least 15 distinct marine species, including lionfish, flatfish, sea snakes, anemones, mantis shrimp, sea cucumbers, even pipefish and juvenile sailfish. The full list continues to grow as more hours accumulate in the archives. The Lembe Marine Biodiversity Project alone has logged over 10,000 hours of underwater footage, revealing that a single octopus can cycle through half a dozen identities in the span of a few minutes. Timing studies have put hard numbers to this spectacle. When confronted by a predator, the octopus can select and execute a new disguise in as little as 1 to 2 seconds. Laboratory trials using video, playback, and live predator silhouettes confirm that the animal responds to a threat almost instantly. Chromatophores pulse, papillae rise, and arms rearrange before most observers can process what is happening. In one published sequence, a mimic octopus shifted from flatfish to lionfish to sea snake in under 5 seconds, each pose perfectly tailored to the perceived risk. The scale of this behavioral arsenal is unprecedented among cephalopods. Most octopus species rely on 2 or 3 camouflage patterns, while the mimic octopus has at least 15, and possibly more, each with its own choreography of color, posture, and movement. The speed at which these transformations occur suggests a decision-making process that is anything but automatic. Field notes describe individuals pausing, scanning their surroundings, then launching into a new act with breathtaking precision. Researchers have clocked the average transition time between models at just over 1 second, with the fastest switches happening in less than a heartbeat. This rapid-fire flexibility is not just a matter of muscle memory. It points to an animal that can assess, choose, and deploy strategies on the fly, a level of behavioral complexity that has forced scientists to rethink what octopuses, and perhaps all invertebrates, are capable of. The mimic octopus repertoire is not a static catalog, but a living, evolving library, shaped by every encounter and every threat that drifts across the volcanic sand. A mimic octopus's arm can act on its own, guided by a nervous system that defies vertebrate norms. Nearly 2/3 of its half-billion neurons are scattered throughout the arms, not clustered in a central brain. Each arm houses its own ganglia, mini processing hubs that sense, react, and coordinate movement without waiting for instructions from the head. When danger appears, the eyes send a rush of visual data to the optic and vertical lobes, regions tuned for pattern recognition and rapid learning. But instead of a single command center issuing orders, signals branch out, activating nerve bundles that reach into every limb and patch of skin. This neural setup lets the mimic octopus shift forms in an instant. A shadow overhead sparks a split-second response. Some signals run through the central brain. Others are handled by the arms themselves. Chromatophores flare, papillae rise, and arms twist into new shapes, all within a heartbeat. Distributed. Intelligence allows the animal to switch disguises mid-motion, with one arm finishing a pose as another begins. Lab studies show juveniles can learn to link specific arm positions to safety or food in less than 5 days, compressing a steep learning curve into a life that rarely stretches past 18 months. The vertical lobe serves as memory, bank, and decision center. Experiments on related species reveal that damage here wipes out learned mimicry, leaving only basic camouflage. In the mimic octopus, the vertical lobe likely stores templates for each disguise, ready for instant recall. This blend of a short lifespan, a vast neural network, and a brain that delegates lets a fragile animal become a cognitive marvel, interpreting its world and choosing how to meet it. Sediment clouds now drift through the Lembe Strait, stirred up by bulldozers along the shoreline and the constant churn of dive boats. Since 2018, researchers and local guides have watched the fine muck thicken, silted and blanketing the sand flats where the mimic octopus once hunted in plain sight. The Lembe Marine Biodiversity Project has tracked a steady drop in sightings, down by 10% over 5 years, while sediment samples show a matching rise in silt, up nearly 60% since the last decade. The culprit is not just industry. More than 120,000 divers visit these waters every year, drawn by the promise of rare encounters. Each boot print and camera tripod presses deeper into the fragile substrate, compacting the mud and scattering the prey that sustains the mimic octopus's short, eventful life. Tourism funds the local economy, but it also leaves scars. Dive surveys record tens of thousands of touches to the seafloor each month at the busiest sites. In the wake of this pressure, small crustaceans, key food for the mimic, have declined by 15% in the upper sediment, and the once clear water now turns cloudy after every high season. For an animal that relies on vision to select its disguise and spot its enemies, this loss of clarity is more than a nuisance. It threatens the very tactics that made the mimic octopus famous. In late 2022, the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs proposed a 25 square kilometer no-touch zone across the richest muck diving grounds. The plan divides the area into core, buffer, and sustainable use zones, banning direct contact in the most sensitive stretches and requiring all operators to keep gear off the sand. Annual audits would track sediment quality and mimic octopus numbers, with community monitors and scientists sharing the task. The LMBP project leader, Dr. Maya Rahayu, calls the plan a chance to protect both the animal and the science it inspires. As the regulation moves through public review, the future of the mimic octopus and the secrets it still holds hangs in the balance. Right now, less than 30 years after its discovery, the mimic octopus faces growing habitat loss in Indonesian waters. Its survival hinges on unprotected reefs. Its story is not just about camouflage. It is a demonstration of intelligence, adapting in real time to a changing world. As we alter the oceans, we decide which marvels endure and which become memory. What would we lose if we let this vanish?